Most people using Claude Code are doing it completely wrong. Not wrong in a small way, but wrong in a way that they're spending hours and hours fixing problems that their own agent has created, and they're losing trust in the whole AI process every time something small breaks, and eventually reaching the wrong conclusion that AI agents just aren't dependable or reliable in a business. And here's what's so frustrating to me about that. It's because the gap between failure and success using AI agents like Claude Code isn't actually that wide. It's just a handful of principles, and once you have those principles, you're well primed for success. I'm Harry from chaiai, and we deploy AI systems into real businesses. And one of the most powerful tools we work with, and probably the hottest AI tool out there right now, is Claude Code. Not just for writing software, but for automating complex business workflows, building what we call at chaiai an AI operating system for businesses. In this video, I'm going to give you the 8 moves that make Claude Code agents reliable and will give you the competitive advantage against everyone else in your field. These are the things that are really separating businesses that are leveraging AI from those that are failing and prompting with no success. So let's get into it. Move number 1 is something that reframes the entire process. It's to stop vibe coding and start directing. Now, most people approach Claude Code like this. They type a request, they wait, they see what comes back, and they either choose to use it or fix it based on that response. That's not directing an agent. That's simply using a slot machine. And this is the first thing I need you to understand. Claude Code is not a chatbot for you to prompt. It's a system you need to direct. And the difference between those two things is enormous. A director doesn't just say, "Give me something good." A director says, "Here's exactly what we're building. Here's what good looks like. Here's how we'll know it works. And here's what you should not touch along the way." Now, the businesses getting real results from Claude Code have already made this shift. They're not simply typing requests and hoping. They have a system, a way of working with an agent that produces reliable, repeatable results every single time. We're going to walk through this structure now. There are 4 stages. The first is to plan with context. The second is to build. The third step is to verify the work. And the fourth, and this is the one most people forget to do, is to evolve that system post-production so that it gets better every single time. Now, on to move 2. This is the one that probably requires the most patience, but will pay off the most if you get it right. And it's to spend more time planning than building. This is the discipline that separates people getting astounding results with Claude Code to those that are frustrated trying to put up fires rather than getting real results. So with AI coding agents, you spend more time planning than you actually do building. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but here's why that needs to happen. Because Claude Code's output is only as good as the brief you put in it. If the brief is vague, the output is vague. If the brief is wrong, well, the output will definitely be wrong. And if you haven't made it clear when it's done, it'll tell you it's done. It will think that it's done when it actually isn't. So before you hand anything off to the agent, you need 3 things in place first. First, what exactly are you building? Not a rough description, a specific, concrete description and definition of what that is. Number 2, what does success look like in this project? How will we know it works when it's up and running? And third, what is the agent not allowed to touch? You can't give it complete autonomy. You need to give it boundaries it can function within. The other thing a good plan will do is force the agent to ask you questions before it begins building. To avoid making any assumptions, you can ask the agent to address the gaps in its knowledge by asking you questions to fill those gaps. And it's a well-structured brief that will surface those gaps in knowledge, as opposed to a broken brief where the gaps are endless. So plan before you build, force the agent to ask questions to address gaps in its knowledge. The plan is your leverage. Now, move 3 does surprise some people because it's actually something that Claude Code cannot do. But before we go any further, just a quick one. If you're finding this video useful and you're looking to implement AI or even learn more about AI, how to implement it into your business, I want to stay up to date with what's going on in the world of ChatGPT, Claude, and everything beyond that, please do like and subscribe. We're a very new channel and would appreciate you subscribing to support our content and stay in the loop. So, move 3. It's something that almost everyone gets wrong when they first start working with Claude Code, and it's costing them results without them even realizing it. So people hear and think that Claude Code can handle 1 million tokens in its context window. That's roughly the entire Harry Potter series 5 times over. And so they think, I'll just throw everything at Claude Code at once and see if it can figure it out. That's not how it works. LLMs, large language models, have what I call the dumb zone. There's a window at the start of the session with the current Opus model. It's roughly the first 250,000 tokens where the model is sharp. It picks things up, follows instructions, and works very well. But once you push past that threshold, things may start to go wrong. It might miss instructions, particularly ones that it would have caught earlier. It might ignore a skill that you've given it, or make mistakes that might seem obvious and very easily avoidable. And the frustrating thing is that it doesn't tell you that it's struggling. It doesn't raise its own alarm bell. It's up to you to figure that out. So the rule is attention is scarce. Don't dump everything into the context at the start of your session. Give your agent only what it needs for the current task at hand, and let it discover the rest only when it needs to do so in the future. Now, practically, this also means knowing when to start a fresh session. If a conversation starts to feel like an LLM is drifting away, it usually means it's a good time to start a new chat, start a new session, and give it a clean brief, but with context from the previous session. The DOM zone is real, but no one talks about it. Manage what you load into the context, but also know when it's time to start afresh. Move 4, and this is where leverage really starts to compound. Now, Claude Code out of the box is already a very powerful tool, but what makes it genuinely transformative is what you build on top of it. Think of it like this. The Claude model is the reasoning engine at the center. Claude Code is the harness, the wrapper that gives it tools, gives it access to the right files, gives it the ability to go and take actions. But then there's a layer around it that you build, which is the rules, the skills, the memory that makes it specific to you and how you want it to work. Now, rules are the things that it should always do or never do, like tone, formatting, what to always check before it finishes, what it's never ever allowed to touch. Skills are reusable procedures. For example, you might have a process that you run regularly, generating a report, distributing something on a regular basis. You can encode that skill so the agent follows the same exact process every time without you having to explain it over and over again. Now, memory is how the system gets smarter and smarter over time, and that compounds. At the end of every session you have with Claude, a summary goes into that memory log. And the businesses that take the time to build this layer, because it does take time, genuinely have a Claude Code agent that feels like a second brain. Now, quick pause, because I want to thank you for watching this video by giving you something genuinely useful before we continue. We've built a free AI Readiness Assessment. It only takes 2 minutes, and it tells you, based on your actual business, exactly where you stand across 4 key areas: your infrastructure, your team capability, your use case clarity, and your readiness to move. You end with a final score on how ready you are across those 4 areas to implement AI in your business, and you'll get a ton of personalized insights and feedback on the results page that can be really useful to your business. It's completely free. It only takes 2 minutes. I'll link it in the description. Let me know in the comments how you get on. Now, move 5 is a shift that will change the quality of everything Claude produces for you, because most people evaluate the agent's work themselves. They look at what it's built, evaluate if it's right, and then move on. The problem is that it is a slow process, it's inconsistent, and it means the quality of output depends on how much effort you're putting into reviewing that specific day. The better approach is to actually build a verification layer, a way for the agent to check its own work before it passes it over to you. What that looks like really depends on what you're trying to build with this agent. For a website, for example, after it's built a website, you might have it visit as a user, take screenshots of different pages, and review them. For an automation, you might have it test through a live demo of a certain use case and see if it performs the output as it should. What you're working on is building a system where the agent iterates based on its own review. So by the time it comes to you, it's much more ready to move. It will save you time and give you a better final product at the end. So build a verification layer, let the agent review its work before you even look at it. Now, next up is more of a mindset I want you to adopt, which is to assume the agent is going to touch everything it has access to. A lot of people think that if they tell that agent not to do something, it won't do it. For example, don't touch that database, don't send that email, don't delete that folder. The problem is that these instructions are sent to a non-deterministic system, and that by definition can behave in ways you don't expect, even when you told it not to. The mental model I adopt and I advise you to adopt too is to assume that the agent will interact with every single thing it has access to. So if it has access to something sensitive, you need to design a system as if it might use that access. The practical answer is hooks. A hook in Claude is a small piece of code that runs every single time the agent is going to complete a specific action. Before it does the action, so overwrites a file or makes a web request or runs a command, you can intercept that using the hook and run a check. If it is addressing something sensitive, you can just stop it. The prompt itself is not a permission layer. You need to build a real permission layer, and part of that step needs to be manual. Now, move 7, the penultimate move I'm going to take you through in this video, is a shift that can make everything else we've gone through compound. It's about failing with your Claude agent. Every failure is a permanent upgrade. When something goes wrong, most people react by fixing it and moving on. That's a missed opportunity. Every time something breaks, every time you receive an output you're not happy with or you didn't want, that's data. And if you treat it as data, you could turn it into a rule, a skill update, or a new review check that means that mistake won't happen again. And this is what I mean when I talk about system evolution. It's not about getting things right perfect on the first try. It's about building a feedback loop so the system gets better and better as you use it. And once that loop is in place, you actually start to welcome problems. You want to snag the system and help it improve, because every problem you incur is an opportunity to improve and build a better system going forward. And finally, move 8 is one I've chosen to position last because this is the one I want to leave you with. And it's about the agent native businesses are the ones that are pulling ahead. And there's a real gap opening up in AI right now. And I want to talk to you about why it matters so much. The businesses that have built structured agent systems that have their AI layer in place, their rules, skills, verification, and reviewing processes all in place, they're operating at a completely different level to those that are still prompting and praying with the normal chat filter. And that gap is only going to widen because the agent loops that your competitors have created are self-evolving. They're improving every day they get used. So that gap's going to get bigger and bigger until you adopt it as well. Now, I'm not saying you need to rebuild your entire operating system overnight, but I've just given you 8 moves. You can pick one and start rolling it out. Get the planning process right, build one skill, add a verification step, and move one failure into a permanent fix. Because the compounding nature of this is real. A system that gets a little bit better every week is a very different thing today than it was 6 months ago. And the beautiful thing is right now, there's still time to be in that first group that pulls away. You just need to take action soon. So that's all 8. Let me quickly summarize them all. 1, stop vibe coding, start directing. 2, make sure you spend more time planning than you do building. 3, manage the context. Attention is scarce. 4, and this is probably the most crucial one, build your AI layer of rules, skills, and memory. 5, to be safe, assume it's going to touch everything it has access to. 6, make the agent verify its own work. And 7, remember every error is a potential upgrade if you have a good feedback loop in place. Finally, number 8, companies that are using these agents natively are the ones that are pulling ahead. Join that group and start implementing this today. Now, remember, if you haven't already, take that AI Readiness Assessment. It's going to be the first step you can take to knowing how and where you should implement AI into your business. It will give you some personalized insights on the results page that can get the ball rolling today. If you found this video useful, please do subscribe. I'm releasing a lot more long form content on all things AI, and I'm going to be releasing some Claude demos to how you can actually go into the tool and build these things in the coming weeks. So be sure to subscribe to not miss out. Thanks, and see you on the next one.